All right, so today we're going to talk about Rails installation. And remember that we talked that Rails is a gem. Rails is all written in Ruby, and so the web server and all the interface to the databases and the views and the models, everything is just a Ruby program. So you can look at the actual source code of the entire Rails project. It's completely open source. You could actually modify it yourself and mess it up however you want. So just like we installed the gems for the PDF writer and some of those, that linguistics gem, those things that we did last quarter, we do that by using the gem command in a DOS prompt or a terminal window. We say gem install Rails. So this is what we're going to do. And if we do that in a DOS prompt, it goes out to the gem repositories. There's several, and it finds the most recent version of Rails and installs it. So this is going to take a while to actually go out and get it. And if there was a newer version than what I have installed on my computer, it's going to install that version as well. But just like with gems, I can have multiple versions of Rails installed on the same computer because it's just a different gem version. So I could have Rails version 1 if I wanted. I don't know why I'd want to go back that far, but I could go back to 3.2.6 or 3.1 or something like that if I wanted to. Yeah.
How long does install typically take?
On your home computer, it should only take about three minutes, maybe. I mean, it shouldn't take very long at all. The problem is the networking here has some problems, and you guys are probably.
I do it right now, but I'm on the cafe.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll take forever. And you guys on these lab computers shouldn't have to do this. It's already installed. So I'm going to open up another DOS window here, command prompt, whatever. And to see what version of Rails you have installed, once it's installed, it installs a command line in your computer called Rails. So Rails is a program. It's actually a Ruby program, and I can say Rails -v, and it tells me what version of Rails I have. If I just type Rails by itself, it comes back with some options, some help options of what we can do with this Rails command. So while my thing is installing, looks like it installed everything correctly. If you've never installed it on a computer, it's going to install about 30 or 40 different gems, because they're all dependent. So Rails is not just a single gem, it's dependent on Active Record and Active View and jQuery stuff, and it's got about 30 different gems that it includes as it installs itself. All right, so once we have it installed, some other things to make sure we have is we can type gem -v to make sure we have the most recent version of the gem program. The other main one that we're going to be using a lot is called bundle. We can check the version of the bundler. We can say Rails -v. I already did that. And remember the other commands, I can say gem list local. That lists all the gems that I have installed on my local computer. And if you go back and look, you have a bunch of gems here. So, for instance, on this computer, I have Action Mailer, which is a mailing portion of the Rails gem. And I have version 3.2.8 installed, and I have version 3.2.2 installed. So the gem system tracks exactly what version I need to have and loads the right version for me. All right? Any questions on that so far? So at home, you're going to install your Rails. Just say gem install Rails and let it come back up. Now, and it's very likely that Rails will be upgraded over this quarter, and you wait until the last minute to install Rails, then we want to make sure you're using version 3.2.8. Because using a different version than what I'm teaching might cause problems. They usually the Rails team, they're all open source developers. They're all doing this for free. Nobody gets paid for this. And so a lot of the top core team have real jobs that they have to do to make money. And so they do this on their own time. Sometimes the companies pay them to keep the Rails system going, like the 37 Signals, the original DHH does. I'm sure that he gets paid by his company to work on Rails. But most of them do it in their free time, and so schedules slip all the time, and they don't get released. And they typically have released a new major version every August for the last 5 or 6 years. And I was expecting them to come out with Rails 4, which is a major change, in August, and thank God they did not do that, because that messes everything up. In a major change like this, from the 2.0 versions up to the 3.0 versions, there was a major change that messed up everything I had created. So the Rails version is really important. So if you want to install an older version, we can specify that by gem install Rails -v to specify the version number that we want, and then we put like 3.2.6, something like that. And it will go find that version and install all of the dependencies necessary for that version.
How important is the version of gems?
Very important also, but it doesn't match. They don't match the Rails version.
Yeah.
It doesn't say gem 3.2.3 or whatever. So I was going to wait to have you update the gem because let's do that in a minute, okay? Because I'm hoping to have that some of you will have an error that I can use as a teaching moment. All right, so we know how to, this is actually how you update your gem system, but don't do it yet. I want to wait for a second, okay? You say gem update -- system, and that updates itself. That updates the gem system itself. And so we'll do that in a second. So you can check the versions of other stuff. I just did this, gem -v, bundle -v, Ruby -v. The version number is important if you're asking questions online, etc. So let's skip that updating of the gem, and we'll go on to creating a new Rails application. All right? So I'm going to do it from DOS. You can do it from RubyMine by creating a new project and going through the steps, but I can't demonstrate that since my RubyMine is broken. So So in a command prompt, I'm going to make a directory called, I might already have one. I'm going to make a directory called demo, and then I'm going to change directory into demo. And from this point, I want to create a Rails application, and I want to call it something. So Rails is the command that we use. We say Rails, and if I just type Rails by itself, told me all this fun stuff that I can do. And the main one is this Rails new and the app that I want to create, the name of my app. So I'm going to call mine blog, just for starters. So I'm going to say Rails new blog. Blog. All right, when I hit return on this, it will go and actually create a bunch of files for me. It creates a ton of files and directories and everything necessary here. All right? And it also runs a bundle command, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it tells you all of the gems that this Rails project is using. Those are, there's some 30-odd gems in here that it's using. Okay? So if you've done that yourself, did anybody get an error? Okay, what was your error? Missing rake? All right, what's the other error then?
An error occurred while installing rake. Software cannot continue.
Installing rake? Anybody not get a rake error? Yes, what was your error?
I'm having to do the same thing on this computer as I did on the one I was using yesterday, except even worse.
Oh, so you're trying to install each one separately?
Yeah.
Don't do that. Okay, so there's a fix for that. What was your original error? Do you remember?
Could not find Gemfile.
Nope. None of you are getting the error that I thought. There is a problem, and it's a well-known problem with this particular version. It was a HTTPS security certificate error, and I was going to have you guys search for that and find the solution for that. The solution is that we need to make our Gem program up to date. There's a newer version of the Gem program that's 1.8.24. So updating that, let's try that. Gem update minus system. And hopefully this will fix your rake errors as well. This will take a little bit. I'm going to pause this. So here we go. It installed, it upgraded itself to 1.8.24. And the bug fix had to do with this security, OpenSSL security fix. And you can research what that was. But that was the problem we were having a couple days ago. And that should fix that. And then once you've done that, do the same thing, Rails new project name, and it should create correctly at that point. Now, if you're in the same directory, it'll say you've already created a project like that. So you might have to delete that folder. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Anybody get any errors now? Still waiting, yeah. All right, so let's talk about the bundle install. If once I've done my creation and I look at the files where I'm at, it actually created a subdirectory called blog. So my entire project is now in this blog directory. That's where I'm going to work for the rest of the quarter, right inside that folder. So I'm going to change directories into my blog folder and look at it. And I see I have tons of files, tons of directories. We'll go through each one of these in a little while. But this is where, from now on, I'm going to run any commands inside of this directory. I have to be inside this directory. So if I run this bundle command from inside of here, what it does is it goes out and makes sure that it installs all the gems necessary for my particular project. It finds the most recent version or the specified version for active model, for instance, or for rack, or for sprockets. These are all little pieces that the Rails project uses, a bunch of these gems. So the bundle command we'll be using a lot to make sure that your project is the same. And if I then take this directory, maybe I created this on my flash drive, for instance, and I take it home, your home computer has different gems installed, right? So to make sure that you have the same gems installed that your Rails project needs, we have to run the bundle command at home. So we take and copy it at home and run bundle again, and it will go out and find all the files necessary for this particular project. Now, when you guys turn in your projects, for instance, and you might go out and use some different gem that I don't have, I have to do the same thing. I have to make sure that I run bundle in your directory, in your project, to make sure that my computer, the whole entire system, has all the gems necessary for it. Does that make sense? So the bundle program is a way of making sure that you have the same environment on multiple computers. That's one way to think of this bundle command.
Can you just type bundle?
Bundle or bundle install.
So my bundle did not work.
What does it say?
It says, please update your path to build, or download DevKit, install, download all the instructions for,
Let me pause this.
error,
Okay, so let's, the problem is if you get an error on the JSON gem, that's the typical one, the JSON gem has some C components in it that require compilation. They actually have to compile pieces of the code for your native computer. So the same gem, if I install it on my Mac, it has to compile that piece for the Mac operating system. If I download it on Windows, it's got to compile it for that operating system. Same with the Linux, etc. So the DevKit, if I look at if I go to Ruby, let's see if I can find it, ruby-lang.org. Boy, it's slow today. We need to feed our gerbils. This is how usually I find it. I go to Download Ruby. I go to the Ruby installer download page for Windows. That's typically where you guys are at. And on that page, it has the Ruby installer for the different versions of Ruby. Now, we're going to be using, and how do I tell what version of Ruby I'm using? Ruby minus V. So I'm running 193 pack 194, P194. So that is the most recent version of Ruby 193. That's the one we want to use at home as well. So you would first install Ruby correctly, just like we've done in the past, making sure you check all the checkboxes so that it installs everything else necessary. And then we have to install this DevKit. So if we click on this DevKit, and it's kind of a pain to install, this will download the exe file that we need. Now this is really kind of a pain. So this will probably take the rest of the hour to just talk about installing this DevKit. No, it's important because I wanted to make sure you guys can work at home. So we'll download that file, and what we want to do is, let's leave that open for a minute. Notice I've done this before. I did this on all the school computers. So let's go and where is the, here we go. Okay, so here's how the, no, that's the Ruby installer DevKit. Very good, Ryan. All right, so on this same page that we downloaded the DevKit from, over here, the Ruby installer development kit link takes us to a place where it shows us how to install the DevKit. And if you just read this through, it's not that hard, but you have to go through all these steps. Make sure that everything works right. So the first thing we're going to do, we installed the file. And we're going to extract the files. So this is if we run that executable that gets downloaded, this executable here, the DevKit.
Oh, I put it in the folder first.
No, it should to ask me where to extract it to. And what they suggest is, and I think on my computer here I have it under a folder called DevKit. So C:/DevKit is where I put it. You guys won't be able to do this on the lab computers, but at home you should put it here. So it's going to extract a bunch of files. You guys have done games online, I'm sure. So we're just going to overwrite everything. Probably screw up my DevKit here. It uses it every time it needs a gem to install compile, though. Yeah.
I have one question. So I just use on the UK give us the website, so they have a free download the kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but when I check, the version is 3.21, but you say that you want 3.28, right?
Downloading what, Rails?
Yes.
No, you don't download it from a website. You download it from command line gem install Rails. Yeah, we're not using the Rails installer.
We
No.
You cannot use this
No,
one?
no.
Okay, so, yeah, use command line. I tried the gem rails install.
No, the other way around. Gem install Rails. All right. So it looks like it extracted everything. And if I look at my directory now, it's kind of small, isn't it? I'll go to my C drive, DevKit. These are all the files that it installed. All right, so we extracted. We go to the next thing, run the installation kits. So from a DOS prompt again, we're going to do everything in DOS. Ruby guys love DOS, or terminal mode, or Unix command line, or whatever you want to call it, on any platform. And that's because it runs the same on every platform. That's why they like it. So from here, I'm going to change directories. I'm going to go to my C drive, and then I'm going to change directories into my DevKit folder. And I see the same folders that I had, same files that I had as if I'm looking at it through Windows here. Same stuff. Bin. I've got a bin folder and a config file and all this kind of stuff here. All right, so I've changed directories into that. When they say DevKit install directory, that means replace me with where you installed it. Don't actually type less than DevKit, etc. All right. Now we're going to run this program, Ruby dk.rb space init, and that generates a file. So we're going to do that from the command line. Ruby space dk.rb space init. And it says, okay, Ruby configuration complete. And what it did was it went out to your system and found what versions of Ruby you have installed on your computer. And it created a little file called config.yaml, config.yml, that's just a text file that the next program is going to use. All right? I think they could streamline this, but that's the way it is. So now I want to actually look at that file. So I'm going to open up Notepad++, open up my C drive, DevKit, and I'm going to look at this config.yaml file. And so it's just a text file, and it has a line to show all of the different versions of Ruby that I have installed. So I don't want it to even know about my 192, so I'm going to delete that and just have my dash, just leave everything else the same. Don't edit any other line, and save that. In most cases, you won't have this. You'll probably only have one version of Ruby. And now we're going to see it said edit the generated file. Make sure that you install the Rubies correctly. And then we can run this optional command to review to make sure we didn't make any mistakes. So I'm going to say ruby dk.rb review. And it says, okay, when you run this install, it's going to do it for my Ruby 193. And so we're going to run ruby dk.rb install. And it will actually create everything. I already had a gem, so I got a little warning there. But everything is done at that point. So it's not too bad, but it's kind of a pain because you have to do it all in DOS. So one thing you can do to test to see if it's working right is to install this gem called rdiscount. And so I'm going to copy this command line, gem install rdiscount, and I'm going to paste it over here. And that will install a gem that requires local compilation. So it has a C component to it. It's going to have to run this DevKit to compile, and that just tests it. It's a small little Ruby gem that you'll never use, but it's useful for testing this thing. So it goes out, gets the gem rdiscount, downloads it, and it should go through the compilation process correctly now. Here's the, it went out and it said building native extensions. So it found the DevKit, it installed it, it compiled it, everything is all happy. So I'm done with the DevKit. Everything should be fine, correct there. So now I can go back to my my blog folder, and you don't have to say Rails new anymore because it tried to start. Inside your blog folder, just type bundle again. And it should go through and install the things that it couldn't find before, like the JSON gem, and it should be able to download this correctly and compile it for you. All right, so just run the bundle command. That's the command you will probably run the most, because if you ever go to another computer, even in the labs, and you get an error that you didn't have on the first computer, run that command first. Make sure that that system has all the right gems installed for your application. All right? So another word on that while we're here, that is controlled, that whole bundle program is controlled by a file called Gemfile. And if I look in my H drive, my demo blog, these are all of the files that Rails generated for me. And one of them is called Gemfile without an extension. And it's just a text file. So I can open that file, and you see it's just a text file which is actually Ruby code. This is actual Ruby code. So if you don't know anything else, if you were trying to read this, what do you think this is? Not what it does. What do you think it is in a Ruby language?
String?
No. This is a string because it's in quotes. It's a method, right. Remember that methods do not have to have parentheses for their parameters, and in Rails they don't do that a lot. Which is, to me is very confusing. But this would be another method that has two parameters to it. This one, two strings are being passed to this gem method. And so it's using these methods. It actually executes this as Ruby, and it's got several things down here that are commented out. But this file was created for you automatically when you did the Rails new program. All right? Any questions on that? And we will be modifying this. When we add our own gem, we're going to add a gem to this file by editing the text file, and then we're going to run the bundle command, and it will go out and find, it reads this file, says, oh, you don't have that new gem that you just installed, so I'm going to install it for you. So I'm going to do that real quick. We're not going to use this gem, but it's the one that I remember, linguistics. If I just type gem linguistics, that means I want my project to use the linguistics gem. So I'm going to save that and then go to my blog folder again and just type bundle. And it says it's going to go through and make sure everything's fine. And if you look back, everything says using because it's already installed, until it got to the linguistics. And then it said, okay, I see you don't have that on your computer. I'm going to install it for you, and everything is all happy now. Yes?
If you have one box and you have all set up with all the gems that you want for a project, and say you want to do that same setup for another box, could you just take your gem file and move that over to a copy of it?
Yes.
And then run bundle?
Yes. Yeah, bundle is a separate program by itself, and you could actually use it just for Ruby programs to make sure that your Ruby directory has all the stuff it needs to run. So, yep. All right, any questions on that? We'll be using that a lot, that bundle command. You can actually run it from within RubyMine as well. So when I get my RubyMine fixed, we'll show you how to do that. All right, let's see where we are at in my thing here. So that creates an entire structure of folders and files. And now let's just go and run the server just so we can get that far. Rails also has a command to start up the server. So I say Rails server. And it starts up, we'll do that in a minute, Rails server. This actually runs the program that becomes a web server on my local computer here. So it's running Ruby code called WebRick, which is a very simple web server built using Ruby. And it's used most of the time just for development. Very few people deploy websites using WebRick because it's too slow. There's a ton of other web servers written in Ruby or other programs. I can attach it to Apache and all kinds of stuff. But this is what we use in development because it works. And notice that it's sitting here blinking. This then becomes the log of activity that happens whenever I hit my website. So let's go and connect to my website, and you'll see what happens here. So to go to my website on my local computer, I go to the special word localhost :3000. What does the :3000 mean? The port. Very good. Because on here you see it actually started on port 3000. It's actually opening up a socket, a listening connection on 0000, which is my local computer, at port 3000. I can change that. I can make it port 80 or whatever, but right now that's the default, so we just leave it at that.
Why is it not on a loopback, on a 127?
You can. Localhost is typically mapped to 127, so I could go to 127.0.0.1, and it should come back to the same one. Maybe not. It's waiting.
Seems really weird that it would show you 0000.
Yeah.
Considering that's not.
That's more so that it's all cross-platform, works on every computer. So, well, it's not coming up. That typically would work as well. If you're using IE in this class, first of all, you're in the wrong class. But if you try to use IE and you type localhost 3000, it goes out and tries to search for localhost, which just ticks me off. So because Microsoft is living in last century still, you have to type http://localhost:3000.
So backslashes work?
Or forward slashes, whatever it is. No. See, it fixed that. It fixed it for me. All right, so that is the website. It found the website. And you notice that it said, this is like looking at a log now of every request that comes into my server. So it said get, that's the verb that we talked about earlier. Get, the path is /assets/rails.ping, and that's this ping image here. Then it said trying to connect to database, and it serves the image, and that's it. If I click on this link, this does an AJAX call. Everybody know what AJAX is? All right, it makes an AJAX call. I know you guys got to go. And you see here, it actually did a get rails/info/properties. And this shows you what version of Ruby I have installed, Ruby gems, all of the database that I'm running, and yours should say this and work correctly. If it does this, then your Rails server is running correctly. All right, so that's all for today.